What is up, guys, and welcome back to the channel. And today I want to revisit the E36, or as some people call it, the Watend. Now, this car has never been that great in any of the previous versions of the game, but with this new update we should be able to get this thing dialed. So the first thing I'm going to do is reset all the parameters for the suspension, wheels, engine, transmission, get this thing to bone stock setup, and then tweak it from there. But the first thing we're going to do is, after we reset everything, we're going to bring it to the track and give this thing a proper shakedown run just in its base ultimate form. Now, just a quick reminder for everybody, this car does have the 2J swapped into it right now, so it's a little bit better than the factory ultimate setup. Probably not going to make much of a difference, but let's go ahead and shake this thing down. So like I mentioned before, this thing has the 2J swapped into it, and it's running the ultimate setup, just bone stock. We didn't change anything. As you've seen, we reset it all, and we are going to flick this thing in and see how it handles. Now, the first thing I notice off the back is the throttle response is a little weak, and we're on the verge of over rotating it there. So we're definitely going to have to change the gearing up some, and definitely something with the diff or the wheels, trying to get some rear grip dialed into this thing. Now, it doesn't feel too bad in the steering inputs, which is really surprising, and it's not scrubbing the front tires as much as I thought it would. So this leads me to believe that the Ackerman isn't so low on this setup, which is pretty cool. Yeah, the car is handling pretty well, and one big thing that a lot of people tend to say is that the car changes its characteristics from the inside view to the outside view. So we are going to try this. And I know even a couple of my friends have mentioned it. I tend to think that there might be something true about that as well. And let's see, we're gonna give this a little flick on the transition, and well, we spun. So I don't know, this can't really be like a solid test for that. Just by chance I did over rotate, but I don't know, we'll see later down the road. Maybe do a video on CarX myths and see if they're true or false. But yeah, right off the rip, this thing doesn't feel too bad with the steering inputs, but like I said before, the gearing and the rear diff definitely needs some love and attention. And let's go ahead and jump into tuning this thing. And like I mentioned before, if you guys want to copy this tune, this is rocking the 2JZ, so make sure you swap this bad boy in. So the first thing we're going to do is fix the rear spring length. It's a little high in the rear for whatever reason. Like I said, we reset everything to factory, and we're going to make this a quick and simple tune. So let's not even touch the dampers. We're definitely going to max out the steering angle and bring up the steering axis offset. That gives me a lot better force feedback in the wheel, and I can really feel things load up in the steering inputs. Definitely want to zero out the rear camber, and I really been liking the Ackerman at 80 lately. You don't want to have more than -5.5 front camber, so we're going to leave it at about -4.5. And definitely want to bring up that rear toe, see if we could suss out the rear end snapping over with that. The wheels, I like a staggered setup, so we're going to drop this down to 235s in the front. And let's see what else we can mess with. The wheel track seems to be way off, so we definitely need to dial that in. Let's go ahead and zoom in and see if we can fix that fitment up. Don't want anything too aggressive because it will play with the physics a little bit, and we don't want it to handle ugly just because the wheel offset is just so far out. So we definitely want to bring the torque down and bring the tune up some. I don't want to make too much crazy power with this car. I want it to be relatively easy to drive with very minimal things change. So we should put this car around the 450 range, 500, leave it around there. 430 seems to be adequate enough, and we definitely need to change the diff and brake settings. So we don't want the brake to be like overpowered, that way I can left foot brake. And let's give this a shot. And we actually skipped over the diff, so maybe we'll revisit that here in a few. But let's go ahead and try this. And right off the rip, the steering feels amazing. The throttle input is right on point where it needs to be. everything feels very predictable and very stable, which is really good, especially with not putting so much into the tune. Now let's go ahead and try this bad boy in third person. I am in love with how this thing is feeling and performing, and the gearing seems to be spot on as well. So I really don't have much to complain about, especially that we didn't even touch the diff. So a big thing there, guys, if you want a little bit different rear grip feel, you can definitely change and play with the diff settings, but right now that's bone stock, the dampers are bone stock, and this thing doesn't even make that much power. It makes 431, and we're running the outside lines. You can see in my video up above, very minimal effort, letting the wheel do all the work, and it's just responding so well to my throttle and steering inputs. Really feeling this. So a big thing that gets overlooked in these setup videos for the car is my wheel settings. So definitely wanted to drop that for you guys and just show you guys how simple this is set up. So once again, force feedback is at 75, prediction and stabilization is 0.2 and 0.6, inertia is at 0.1, and everything else is the factory settings. As far as my Thrustmaster settings go, we are at 900 degrees. We have the overall strength at 100, constant and periodic at 100, and everything else is off and applied settings from the game. So with that, guys, hope you enjoy this. If you like the video, leave a like, drop a comment, and I'll catch y'all on the next one.